Lonnies.
Welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine. If you enjoy this programming, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Join Truth and Rhythm's membership program through Patreon. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk. Shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. It is an honor to welcome to Truth and Rhythm iconic jazz keyboardist, producer, and composer Lonnie Liston Smith. Beginning his recording career in the 1960s as a pianist for some of jazz's most prolific figures, he went on to lead his own group and release more than a dozen albums during the 70s and 80s that explored and redefined not only contemporary jazz, but also jazz funk and jazz soul music, which later provided popular grooves for rappers. Big names he collaborated with through the years include Roland Kirk, Pharoah Sanders, Gato Barbieri, Miles Davis, Norman Connors, Mtume, Marcus Miller, and Phyllis Hyman. In 2023, he ended a 25-year studio hiatus with Volume 17 of the Jazz is Dead series. Lonnie, thank you for joining me. It's an honor.
All right, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here.
Where are you today?
Oh, I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just at home and shoot, I guess there's not much to do on Saturday, so just taking it easy.
Well, I so appreciate you spend time to speak to us today. And with that background, it looks like you're on the beach somewhere, so that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. I just changed. I got a new mic and new camera, so I just decided to change the background.
Well, it looks good. So I want to say a special thanks to Peewee Ford for connecting us. So thank you to him. He's a fan of the show and a heck of a bass player. So.
Oh yeah, oh man, it was fun working with well, we always called him Peewee, and it was amazing because he was Peewee Ford, but he always wanted two big hands, big as a house. It was fun though.
Well, I'm going to talk about him a little bit more when we get to that part of your amazing career. But to get us started, Lonnie, if you could take us back to like 1965, when you got started with Roland Kirk, what are a couple of the memories from, your beginnings, and what lessons did you learn?
It was interesting because Roland Kirk, he played these three horns simultaneously, so that was really different. And then he had a nose flute, and so I think the first recordings I did was that please no, here comes the whistle man, and then please don't cry, beautiful Edith. And so we did those two. We did those two albums with him, and then we went on tour. And so it was always interesting because, like I said, he played the three horns, and so he had to get used to that, but he could do it.
Yeah. So as you're like kind of cutting your teeth with these guys, also Pharoah Sanders and Gato Barbieri, What were like some of the lessons and things you picked up from them that kind of carried you forward?
Well, the main thing with Pharaoh and Gato, but with Pharaoh, we just all got together with Leon Thomas. In other words, Pharaoh was doing different things on his horn, and I said, "Wow, he it sounded like he wasn't supposed to be able to do that." And and I was trying to get more sound out of the grand piano, and then we heard Leon Thomas yodeling, and it just came together naturally, organically, because we didn't even have to rehearse that much. And then we went in the studio with Bob Thiel and did Karma. The creator has a master plan, and the record just took off. So but then we started doing engagements, and so and a lot of times we would just stretch the music as far as we could. And I would always tell Pharoah, so Pharoah, we got to kind of we stretch the music, but then we kind of go back to the melody at the end. We just can't leave people out there in space. And so but it was just a natural, organic thing with Pharoah and Leon and myself. And then Gato Barbieri, he heard me playing with Pharaoh, and Bob Thiel had Flying Dutchman Records, and he was gonna sign Gato. So Gato said, "Can you want to do the first record with my first record with Flying Dutchman?" And we did that, and so it was just like I said, very natural and organic, and it all worked.
It definitely worked really well. And of course, you had some formal training coming in. So, did that really help you, or did you kind of put that out the window when you really got deep into the jazz?
Well, yeah, that's a good point because um, I went to Morgan State University, which is in Baltimore, Maryland, and it had great teachers, but I met Gary Bartz because he was from Baltimore. We were both about the same age. We were young, and so he was starting out, and his father had a club called I forget the name of the club, and so then we started performing there, and on weekends, 'cause we were going to school during the week, and so we were all learning and experimenting, and then in Baltimore, I worked with Ethel Ennis. Um, she was at the Red Fox Club, and then did a lot of engagements all over Baltimore. And so those were just good learning experiences.
And what point did your brother start, working with you? Was that all along, or just later on when you did your own thing?
Oh, just later on when I did my own thing, because if you go back to the real beginning, my father, was singing with the Harmonizing Four gospel group, and they went all over the world. And Donald, that's what you hear on expansions. Donald and then my other brother Ray Smith, they both inherited my father's beautiful tenor voice. I could only sing the bass part. So, and my brother Ray Smith had a big hit record with the John Mills, A Little Bit of Soap. That was my brother Ray Smith with the John Mills, and then and my father and them just they went all over the world harmonizing for. I met when I was a young kid. I met the Dixie Hummingbirds and Soul Serious because they all did shows together. And come to find out years later, I didn't know. I met Love's grandfather because he was singing with the Dixie Hummingbirds. But I didn't know anything then. I don't even know if Crest was even born.
Hmm.
And in 1945, my father and them sang at the White House at the President Roosevelt's funeral. Eleanor Roosevelt invited him. So I just been in music, my whole life, and then I didn't. I always remembered Donald had that beautiful voice. So eventually, after all, when I first started doing my own thing, then that's when I called Donald. First time I wrote lyrics was on the record expansion, and so I heard Donald's voice, I heard my father's voice, and then that's when Donald started singing. Was on that record. Maybe made the record before, but he had that beautiful tenor voice.
Yeah.
and played some flute as well.
Oh yeah, he
Um,
had played the flute, piano, and he had perfect pitch.
hmm, wow, that's quite a musical lineage. Amazing. Um,
Right.
so in the late '60s, early '70s, when you were really doing your thing, what were there any like rock or soul or funk acts that also you felt influenced your direction?
Um. Well, it was we all grew up on the James Brown. Oh my goodness, that's I mean he's amazing. When the funk that he laid down and all those great uh, funkologists came out of him, out of his band. So we're always influenced by that, and so then because when I did expansions, I wanted to put the funk on the bottom, but what we was gonna play on top just the same way we would if we were doing straight ahead jazz. Do improvisation, use the same chords, but you had the funk on the bottom of all that, and then on top I had the lyrics expand your mind, and Donald was floating on top of all that. And when he came out, the record just took off worldwide, and I guess that was really when I guess I really started going out all over the world.
Yeah, just an amazing landmark record. Your third record, I think, with the Cosmic Echoes, if I'm
Right.
correct, and 1974. Let me ask you about a few cuts on that, Lonnie, if I could. The title track, just an amazing, really slick, up-tempo, funky, soulful jazz with the vocals, as you mentioned. Did you feel like you were really onto something special right at that time?
Well, Scott, no, it was you never know. I always just try to be true to the music and just try to express, what you were really feeling inside, and manifest that through the music. And because I did a lot of studying all kinds of worldwide religions, philosophies, and so trying to. I guess it's from my background, my father's background, the gospel and all that. So I was trying to, you know, bring peace and harmony to the world, and that's easier said than done. So I tried to put all that, express that in when we did expansions. That's like I said, first time writing lyrics, and so when he came out, it seemed like that's what everybody was waiting for.
I really love also Voodoo Woman. It's a real
Oh,
funky one,
right.
you know. And Shadows, great track. Um, is there anything
Oh,
else you could share about those sessions, that was stood out?
well, it was interesting. The the first time I discovered the Fender Rose like the piano was I was doing the last record with Pharaoh called Thimby, and I never played electric piano before. It was always grand piano. So we were in the studio in L.A. doing Thimby, but everyone else was setting up, unpacking their instruments, setting up the bass, the drums, and so I saw the instrument in the corner, and I asked the engineer, I said, "What is that?" He said, "That's a Fender Rose electric piano." So I just went over. I said, "Well, I never played one." So I went over and start touching the knobs and everything. And Scott, I just started writing this song, and everybody ran over and said, "What is that?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just kind of messing around." Oh man, we got to record that. And they said, "Well, what you gonna call it?" I said, "Well, sound like we floating through space." And at that time I'd been studying astral traveling, astral projection and all that. And so I said, let's call it astral traveling because it seemed like, we floating. And so that was the first time I played the Fender Rose. But then when I was with Miles Davis, I saw Miles Davis hook up all those pedals to his trumpet. And I'd only seen guitarists hook up pedals to their instrument. But then when I saw Miles hook the instrument to his trumpet, I said, now what would happen if I hook all these pedals up to the Fender Rhodes electric piano, and I did, and just came up, with that cosmic sound. And like on Shadows, I had like I think it was Echoplex, so you could just had the notes going out there, floating, and repeating out there in space, and that's exactly what I did on Shadows.
Phenomenal. And Lonnie, when you got started, I mean, did you always kind of have aspirations to, get your own name out there and be the leader, or did it just kind of happen organically?
God, that's exactly what happened. It happened organically. Um, because I was so into the music. When I left, I wanted to play with all the masters or geniuses. I played with Max Roach, Art Blakely, and the Jazz Messengers. I did with Betty Carter. I mean, she's a phenomenal singer. She sings more like a horn player. And of course, you end up with Miles, and I met Monk working with Art Blakely, just hanging out. And then when I was with Miles, uh, Bob Thiel called me and said, "Well, it's time for you to do your record because everybody's, you did all these records for me with Pharaoh, Gato, and did Leon Thomas' first record." Uh, okay, so we went in the studio and I did Astro Traveling. That's it. And I had Mtume, he was playing congas, and I had Body Roy playing the tablas from India, and and I did one song on that record called "In Search of Truth." And I wanted a tambura player, and so Body Roy brought his wife in, and she played the tambura, and so I did the record, and I went back with Miles. So months later, I get a call from Bob. He said, "You got to put a band together because I get ready to release the record." I said, "Well, Bob, I can't leave Miles. This is, I'm learning a lot. And this is a great experience." He said, "Lonnie, I can't put the record out if you don't, if you don't put a band together and all that." So I had to leave Miles and just started my band. And like you said, it was just happened organically.
What was it like when you first met Miles?
Oh yeah, that was, uh, and when I first met Miles, I got a call to do. I think he was working on the Corner, and so I went to the studio. I didn't know. So I'm standing up against the wall because I see three keyboards and I see Herbie Hancock and another keyboard player. So I think I'm waiting my turn. So Miles walked up and said, Miles, he's very candid. What the bleep you waiting on? So I said, "Oh, okay, we're supposed to play together." And I never experienced that before. So you got to come up with something. And that's what Miles wanted anyway. I got to come up with something because I can't play what Herbie's doing and the other keyboard player. So we did On the Corner, and then I get the call to go on tour with Miles, and so I go to his house, and so now I'm all excited. I said, "Oh, now I can really get into the Fender Rhodes because Herbie had played it with Miles, and Joe Zawinul, all these players. I think Chick Corea." So Miles said, "No, no, no. I'm tired of the Fender Rose." I said, "Oh man, what? Yeah, I want you to play that." I said, "What is that, Miles?" The Japanese had just given him a electric organ, but it wasn't not the Jimmy Smith type. It was an electric organ, like a regular keyboard, but it had the sounds. He said, "I want that sound now." And I said, "Well, Miles, can I take it home and practice?" "Oh no, no, no. You get it on. You get it when we on the gig." And so, Scott, I mean, that's why if you notice, when everybody left Miles Davis' band, they automatically formed their own group because Miles wanted you to really create and improvise every night, and a lot of bands don't want you to do that. So I had to learn the keyboard and create and improvise, but it made you stronger.
Well, like being a baby being pushed out of the nest and you got to fly immediately, right?
Oh, that's good. Okay. That's good.
Yeah. Uh, wow. So are you on the corner sessions or only I have you for big fun?
No, what? I'm on it, but they finally gave me credit because I have a. Oh shoot, it's downstairs. I have a. They put out a gold thing. It's in a box,
I got
and
I got it here. I don't know if you can see.
that's it. And then they finally got me in there.
Okay, good.
That's it. And you look and you see the picture of me in there.
Excellent. All right. Finally. What was the delay?
I don't ask me, man. I guess I don't know what they kind of overlooked me for a minute.
What role did Bob Thiel play, in your getting uh really off and running on your own and just in general for your career?
Oh man, yeah. People don't realize how important Bob Thiel was to the music business because Bob Thiel go all the way back to Buddy Holly. He produced him. He produced all the John Coltrane records. He produced John Coltrane, Duke Ellington. He produced Louis Armstrong. What's the name of that song that became so big? For the Wonderful World. Then he produced all the Pharaoh, all the Gato, Gil Scott Heron, uh, Leon Thomas, Bob, and most of those records, on Flying Dutchman, Bob would always call me, and so and Bob never got anywhere. He never told you what to do, anything. He just wanted you to express your creativity, and you can't beat that. So he was very important, and he didn't. A lot of record companies, they take your publishing, all that kind of stuff. Bob was that kind of person. So I give Bob a lot of credit.
Lonnie, who were one or two maybe other keyboardists out there that you felt like a kinship to?
Ah, that's interesting. Cause I always like the horn players, train and cause when I was in high school, I first heard Charlie Parker playing Just Friends with strings. Man, I went crazy. I said, "What in the world is that?" And they said, "Well, that's Bird playing. He's improvising." And that's when I said, "Oh man, that's what I want to learn how to do." And so I always was. I like Bird, Train, Miles, all the great horn players. But of course, growing up, you know, I listened to Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, Earl Gardner, uh, you know, Finished Newborn or Finest Newborn Jr. These are fantastic keyboard players or pianists. And a lot of people don't realize how great Nat King Cole was as a pianist. So, I listened to all that, but I would just when I got what I do, I just sit down and try to, you know, I guess I'd be trying to sing through the piano because I grew up with around all these singers, so I'd be trying to sing through the piano and try to manifest, what you're really feeling inside. So, but but I love listening to other pianists. I love their styles because McCoy Tyner had a great style. Herbie has his own style. Chick Corea has his own style. And even fast. I mean, I just love listening to the different ways that they all approach the keyboard.
Hmm. It's interesting that you mentioned about the horn admiration, and because a lot of my favorite horn players, they say that they're like thinking of singing through their horn, and a lot of the great singers I like are thinking about making like a horn sound through their voice.
Ah,
So it's really interesting because those are my favorite musicians usually, the ones that do that kind of thing.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, the horn or the keyboard is just supposed to be extension of you. I mean, you almost have to become musical, become the keyboard.
I bet you never imagined in certainly back then and even somewhat later that 50 years on expansions would have the kind of lasting impact that it does.
Oh, Scott, I mean, they just put out celebrated in London. They celebrated 50th anniversary with a brand new album. I mean, it's and it still sounds fresh. I mean, that's and because I've seen little kids listen to it today, and they get all excited, and so I mean, it's because I wanted to develop, that universal sound, and wanted the music to be eternal, and so I guess that's what expansion, does. Or another good example when you listen to Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," it sounded just like he recorded it yesterday. So that's what you want.
For sure. Since you mentioned Marvin, I'm going to jump to that. You toured with him in 1980, right?
Well, I don't want to lie, because a lot of people say I'm in Montreux. Was it Montreux? They say I know I was there, but I can't remember. They say I was playing with Marvin. So I mean I can't bring it all back. So but I was there. So they say I was there recording with Marvin, and I know he was one of my favorite artists on Motown. I mean,
Mhm.
I could really relate to him and the later Stevie. Because the first part of it, we all sang doo wop at home, like that was just normal.
I'm as I mentioned before we started recording, I'm a real heavy funk guy and soul guy. So, when I look at your catalog, I just want to share, some of my favorite tracks from Visions of a New World, like A Chance for Peace. Yeah, it's a real funky one. And Davika is a really cool instrumental. Uh, really like those. And from Reflections of the Golden Dream, Get Down Everybody.
All right.
Um, and on Renaissance from 77, Space Lady is really cool, funky instrumental. And Mongo T
Oh yeah,
is a
that I
nice one
think I
too.
think that was Dave Hubbard. I think he did Mongo T and Devika, because Devika was his wife. And but okay, we're doing Vision of a New World. Okay, then we did part one, which is Donald and I. But we were doing part two, and man, we couldn't figure out the rhythm. And and there was a little drummer that you might know of him. He was just, I mean, he was a little young guy, just sitting in the studio. I don't know how he got there. Came with someone, and Wilby Fletcher, a young drummer, and he was a young kid then, and he just walked over to the drums and started playing what you hear on the beginning of Vision of a New World Part Two, and we all said, "That's it." And I don't know, Scott. I always wanted things to happen like that, organically that and natural. So, when he did that, man, it's something we just took off. And so all those songs, that you like, like Space Lady and all that. And it took years for them to put out, I mean, to reissue Renaissance. I don't know why. Now that was a big problem, but Ace Records finally, figured it out.
Hmm. 77, you came with the live record. Love Sorceress on there. That is just fire jazz fusion. Um, great. You didn't put out a lot of live records, but that one, I think was pretty special.
Oh, you mean the record live?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that was the only one. And we did it over at, I think, some club in Smuckers. And I mean the place was packed. People, all kinds of, dignitaries came by, and I think that was Bob's suggestion. That we do that, and I mean it just worked. We just had fun. And the picture was a Japanese artist. I mean, it really looks like live, and you can feel it. So, but that was the only live I think recording I've ever done. But it came out well.
And then in 78 with Loveland, you got kind of a little more R&B type of flavor. And Marcus Miller, how did you come across Marcus?
Same thing with Marcus. But I mean, I love bass players and drummers, and because you know that's who really lays the funk down. And so I was at some jam session, and Marcus, I think he was about 18, 19, and so I said, wow, he sounds good. So I just, but, you know, I didn't, I was listening and hadn't thought of anything else. So after we finished jamming and Marcus was sounding good and he had the thumb and that's, you know, because that's what made, with Slide with Larry Graham. Oh, goodness. That really lays the funk down. And so he came over and he put his bass down. He said, you know, I got a song for you. I said, oh, okay. So I'm looking at him, you know, he's so young. I'm looking at him. So, okay. So I didn't know. He sat down at the front of the rows, started playing doom, doom, boom, 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 doom, and started singing, Journey into Love. I said, uh-oh.
Mm.
After that, I said, uh-oh, this is, well, I mean, Miles and I used to talk about that. When you hear a young kid or young musician, you can tell, you know, if you're gonna be a star one day. So I had this session. I think it was Loveland, and I said, well, so I just took him in the studio, and I think we did those songs right then, and so that was a lot of that was you know related to Marcus and his. He was excellent. As you can tell now, he's a star and he's an excellent writer and excellent bassist, and he plays other instruments also. So
Yeah, you kind of flipped the script. You know, you were sort of like in Miles' seat, and he was
ah,
in your seat. You know, and you were passing it along. Did you give Marcus much direction, or you just let him do his thing?
that's it. Same thing with Miles. You just let Marcus do his thing, and so and it worked. I think we did two or three, maybe three albums or more with together, and it's like I said, you didn't have to tell him anything because you know he was right there where you know where you wanted him to be, you know, music wise.
Then 79, A Song for the Children is another one of my favorite albums of yours. Um, got some tracks on that I mentioned or I
Oh,
highlighted. Um, Aquarian Cycle and Nightlife. Um,
all right.
yeah. And Marcus is really standing out on that too.
Oh yeah, that's it. Because I think he wrote some for the children, and so and like you know that's what really made the. I think when Larry Grant came up with that thumb, oh man, that really laid the funk down. And so then after that, the other bassists started doing that, and that really made the funk. I mean, I guess more funkier. So because if you notice, they didn't do that with James Brown. It was man, I think it was the drums and but
And the
then
rhythm guitar. Yeah.
oh man, that's what I always wanted to play with Wawa Watson, and Wawa Watson is from Richmond, Virginia. I never knew that, but I never got an opportunity to play with him. I mean, you the way he played enhanced the funk. That's it.
For sure. But I felt like you closed the 70s with just, really strong because also Love is the Answer, a really good record. I really like Bridge Through Time and On the Real Side and Give Peace a Chance. I mean, those are really, really strong songs and a strong record. How'd you feel about the way you were fusing together, the jazz and the R&B and the funk?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to infuse it but just make sure we still doing the improvisation and playing the same way we would as if we were straight ahead. And And that Lover's Answer, interesting record because that's when I met all these new musicians, Peewee Ford or Paris Peewee Ford, and I think Donald went out on his own, my younger brother, and so they told me about James Crabb Robinson, the singer, and when I heard him, and people don't realize he took Luther Vandross's place with a group called Change. Because Luther did the record recording, but he didn't want to go on the road, and so James Craig Robinson took over, and he had a nice voice. So it was all these they all were new, and so I forget who the drummer was, but
It was Lino Reyes.
oh yeah, well, okay, I discovered Lino through Marcus because Lino did some other records with us, and so but they all came together, and so it was great. And like I told you before about Pee Wee, he was. I should always look at him because he wanted two big giant amps, larger than he was, and but he was funky though, so that's the main thing. That thumb again, and I mean it's and the record came out well.
Came out great. You really got some jam and piano on there and some great organ, the plucking bass, Pee Wee filled Marcus's shoes pretty good on that record, I
Right.
think.
That's what I'm saying. It is. Oh yeah, he was there.
Um, and then the horns, it was like a difference in horns for you. You started using some of the, horn arrangements like Earth, Wind and Fire and groups like that were using where it was more, all brassy and all together.
Oh great. I hadn't even thought about that. Right. Who was the arranger on that record?
Let's see.
Because I know on
It's
Runners.
a Productions, Cosmic Productions.
Okay, then
Um,
because I knew I didn't arrange the horns. I said, who was it?
yeah, I'm not seeing on this the arrangement, but
I got to check with Bob Thiel
but
Jr.
these players were Albert Duke Jones, Jonathan Lewis, Kevin Jasper, Corin Daniels, and Louis B. B- Barbari.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow. I got to because I know we did Renaissance. I forget that the guy came and did a lot of great arrangements. I forget his name, but yeah, well, that's good. I hadn't even thought about Earth, Wind and Fire and how they. But that's good. I like that. So I didn't thought about the horns in that perspective. But that's good.
I'm actually speaking with Crab next week.
Oh yeah. All right. Tell him I said hello. I haven't seen him in years. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, I will. Um, so after that, Lonnie, you kind of went, I guess, through a little bit of transition period with the Dr. Jazz stuff. How was it for you when you were switching labels? Did you feel like you kept the continuity?
Um. Yeah, because it was still Bob. Bob Thiel called it. He was a master at would create new companies. Because if Flying Dutchman was with RCA, and then I don't know was the other one with RCA or Columbia. I'm not sure, but he was a master at doing that. And but now it was interesting. But now when I switched to Columbia, now that was a different that was a different situation. Columbia, they didn't play. Columbia said, okay, we done sign you, you economically and all this stuff, but then we're gonna sign you a producer, an arranger, and Bert Dicato, they signed him to me, and but Bert Dicato was excellent, and because he had a great background as a producer and arranger, and because I did Quiet Moments, and then he put some beautiful strings, and actually, whenever we record. Bert Dicato would bring in all these great singers because he would use them on other productions, and that you might have they what's the girl? These three great singers. They work together, but they also work with other people. Patty Austin, the girl. What's that? Wrote the song "In the Mountain Higher."
Diana Ross.
No, "In a Mountain Higher." She wrote it with her husband. She wrote a lot of hit songs.
Oh, Valerie Simpson.
That's it. But people don't realize they were a bunch of singers. They came in threes. But they were so excellent readers. They just come in the studio and Bert or whatever the arranger has, they could just do it without even thinking. And so they own some of those records with Bert. Bert Dickinson was the producer and arranger. So people don't realize, man, Luther Vandross made a fortune over, doing that kind of work. Uh, the guy that did Bambi, that's all he did. Before that, they were studio musicians. They come in and just sing whatever that the arranger had written out.
Call those studio aces.
Right. You're
Yeah.
right.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.